Hi, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy.
And this is a Girls in Marketing podcast. Every week, we release a new episode that you won't want to miss. Our guests are industry experts with amazing experiences, so you'll always come away with new nuggets of wisdom. From educational and inspiring episodes covering the latest in digital marketing to casual and fun chats with the Girls in Marketing team, unpacking marketing myths and trends, we've got it all.
Here at Girls in Marketing, we're all about empowering and supporting women to be the best marketers they can be through our online learning platform and community. Check out our resources and membership to get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle.
Right, let's dive into an episode together. Hello and welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today, Amy and I are so excited to be joined by Clark and Lee Benecke, founders of SocialNorth. When I first met Justin and Lee in 2022, they both asked me to be a speaker at two of their SocialNorth events, one in Leeds and one here in Liverpool. It was such an amazing experience to feature on a lineup of incredible speakers presenting to an audience full of social media professionals in the North. Justin and Lee are huge advocates for events in the North after realising, like many of us, that the expectation to always travel down south is not only expensive, but also neglects all of the talent that exists in the north of the UK. They're both super busy, doing so much in the world of events, social media, and lots of other things. So we're very excited to have them on the podcast today. So welcome, both of you. It's so nice to have you here in very sunny Liverpool today. I want to get started and I want you guys to give a bit of an overview on what SocialNorth is, because you both founded it together. What actually is it for people who don't know?
I'll go first.
Go for it.
So you think I would have this nailed down by now. SocialNorth fundamentally is an event, is a networking speaker event for people working in digital marketing, social media in the North. Lots of big plans for it. But SocialNorth has grown into a community with a couple of thousand people. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, it's the best event in the North of its kind, aiming to make it the best in the UK. But it's a growing community, it's a growing event. That's where we are now. That's the kind of simple answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've probably hit all the main points around it there. But ultimately, like I said, we just want to put the North on the map, basically. So I think it's something that truly, it is a speaker event, but it's something that truly represents the North, as well as physically being here as well, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that's so important to us and something that we try to build already. But
yeah, definitely. And having attended quite a few of the events ourselves, and Olivia, obviously you speaking at a couple and stuff like that, definitely that is what it is, and it is putting the North on the map, and I love that. That's why we're such huge SocialNorth fans ourselves.
Yeah, that's something I'm really passionate about, as we've spoken about before. I think as someone who kind of grew up and was born, bred Liverpool, it is so important for me that it becomes the norm that these events happen here. And I think that, I know we've kind of spoken about it before, but it'd be really great to share like the main drivers for doing that, because I think to me it's obvious, but what was your kind of, both of your experiences in what was the main driver for SocialNorth initially?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk for a long time about this, and it's one of those things you kind of say a lot at events and introductions, and it can sound a little bit like a kind of spiel or a story. But genuinely, I spent many years going down to London as a speaker, as a panellist, going to events, sending, my staff to events. And every single time, it cost a fortune. An event, a conference, £500-600 a ticket, £200, £300 for a train ticket, a couple of £100 on a hotel. And the events weren't always what I expected. I wasn't wowed. I didn't think, oh yeah, that's worth £1,000. And the more I went to, the more kind of frustrated I got with it. But there was a few moments, as there usually are, where, a girl started in my team, really enthusiastic, really good at what she did. And she kept coming to me with things. One was a conference in London. Can I go to this? Such and such is speaking, it'll be amazing. Went to my director and said, really good event. She's really passionate, really keen. And he said, yeah, that's fine, but that's her training budget for the year.
Wow.
And that was one of the moments where I thought, something needs to change.
Yeah.
We've got so many talented people so many amazing brands and businesses in the north, and there's nothing in that kind of ecosystem to support them. You know, the opportunities you can get from networking and from learning and meeting people just didn't exist. So I kind of complained and moaned about it for 2 or 3 years, and then thought, let's just do it. Let's try and make something happen. That's kind of the main driver for it.
Yeah, I think one of the other key things around it was the fact that I think we spent so much time travelling to London for those events, and then I'd bump into you in London. Like literally, we'd all be spending that money.
Yeah.
And the people I'd network with were the people that are in Manchester or Liverpool, or the people I could see every day if I wanted to as well. And I found myself, especially some of the longer conferences, say like a social media week, for example, because of the cost prohibitors as well, I wasn't able to go to it all. It's a 5-day event, I think, the one I went to once. And I found myself looking across 5 days of content going, okay, I can probably afford to be there for a day and a half max. And that's me like traveling down in the morning. So I'm going to miss an entire morning schedule, catch some afternoons. Then I've got a day. Then I'm traveling back late that following night. And I almost had to like beg and borrow, like, oh, I'm willing to sacrifice that one good speaker for this one good speaker. And then you get there and to your point, the speaker was terrible. And I'm not going to name names, but there was one social media week I went down to, and I'd basically chose my entire week stay down there based on one brand and one agency who I thought were creme de la creme. I wanted to hear that person speak. The agency did a 60-minute creds presentation, which I probably could have read the website for. And the one brand I still adore to this day as a brand, but their talk basically said, we get our audience to create content for us. And I'm like, I've spent 500 quid, or my business has spent 500 quid. So for you to tell me your core marketing strategy is UGC, great. And the other person told me a show reel that I knew. And even then, the networking opportunities weren't that great. So I was really just felt really let down by it. And then, as I said, as you said, we then speak in the north about things. And I've actively avoided moving to London my entire career. And you wouldn't believe how many times I could have done, possibly could have, should have done at points of my career, should have gone down there. But being so adamant of like, why should I have to?
Yeah.
To the point where I've now had great roles in Leeds and Manchester and the North, and prospered working with great brands, and never once has my career faltered as a result of it. But it would have been so easy for me at 21 to be like, go down there and do that. And that's just sort of, I know that's more career based, but from an event perspective, it's the same principle.
Yeah, because I did that. So I was in London for years, you know, and when I came back home, I had that kind of 6 months of a year thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Like for me, there was a moment of, if I'm not there, I've somehow let myself down. I'm missing out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
it took me a few years to kind of realise actually that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of north and the big cities in the north and the people are just as good. You know, there's just as many opportunities. Yeah. But when it came to things for the industry I became part of, you know, one thing, I used to go to loads of events, kind of any event in Manchester that had social media marketing in the title, I would go to. And I would see the same faces, you know, from the same brands or the agencies. And 10 minutes into that event, we'd kind of look at each other with, oh, okay, you know, the event was just really basic. It was like introduction to Facebook advertising for small businesses or how to use marketing to X. There was nothing for that professional community. So at the same time, I was going to stuff like that. But then there was agencies like, you know, half the agencies Lee's worked for, there was Social Chain, all these big agencies, big brands. And I thought, why isn't there anything for people that work professionally? You know, pitched at that level of, we know what we're doing, now let's kind of learn from the best.
Yeah.
That was kind of the things that came together to spark that idea in the first place.
I think as well, one thing we noticed about when we got into speakers planning for SocialNorth, some of the people we did bring to SocialNorth last year are London-based, but they're from the North. So we've got people who were born in Liverpool or Manchester, or even like smaller towns in the North, who have made that decision to go south and prosper in their career, and they're doing amazing roles, amazing work. But then we'd speak to them like, would you like to come up north and speak? And they're like, oh my God, yeah, would I? I have never spoken in my hometown. I have never spoken where I came from. Like, I get asked to do stuff all the time, like internationally, but I never get asked to come to the North, which blew my mind, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It's actually quite funny how many senior professionals in London are actually from the North for a start. There's quite a lot of them. But the fact that they came home to see family and that was about it, even if they did that. And they never would come up here in a professional capacity.
Yeah, but that also just demonstrates the importance of what SocialNorth are doing and just celebrating people from the North, in the North in general. You know, that there are people who are saying, oh my gosh, yeah, I've never had that opportunity before, and they bite your hand off to come back to where they're from because they felt like those opportunities just didn't exist unless they were in London or down south or, you know, abroad or whatever. So it does really just highlight the importance of it, doesn't it? And, you know, we're huge advocates for it as well.
Yeah. And it's not like there's not venues up north either. Because I think that's another thing, potentially, like a good few years ago, maybe there wasn't the venues there, or maybe there always has been, but it's kind of like, you know, London has those big, massive places that you can do conferences and all that sort of thing. And I think now so many, especially Manchester, I mean, Manchester's like the second city now, isn't it, of the UK or something? Loads of people say that. And I think so many brands are seeing the value of it. So I think we just need to do more events in the North, really, which is so important. Interesting question. How did you two actually meet?
Still a sore subject, so I'm gonna let him tell you this one.
What have we done then?
Yeah, this is the breakup podcast.
This is where I'm going to shift up a bit.
So the simple question: Justin was my client, or in brackets, should have been my client.
This is such a sore subject.
So I've my big background, especially the last 15 years, has been agency, and obviously I spend a lot of my time pitching to new businesses. The agency I was at the time pitched to TFGM, Transport for Greater Manchester, where Justin was heading things up. And I think it was for a summer campaign, if I remember rightly. We were pitching for a summer campaign.
Is it not our Instagram account?
Yeah, I think possibly. I remember the brief. So
doesn't remember these things.
No.
I remember every
Justin
detail.
remembers every single detail.
So I went to, we pitched and we won. And I don't think I'm being big-headed to say one of the main reasons we won is because basically me and Justin pretty much agreed on like 99% of stuff we were talking about in the session, in terms of we come from very similar backgrounds in terms of worked in the industry for a long time, very eerily spooky in terms of how similar we are in terms of like age, places of education, all that kind of stuff. But we just connected. What Justin didn't know when he was making the decision is that I'd already handed in my notice to that agency and I was leaving. So I was quite naughtily cold pitching essentially my expertise to a client who I'd never ever work on. I felt pretty crap about that, if I'm honest, and it wasn't a decision I made. But you know, at agency life, you were like, I was in the process and I pitched, and I think we did the pitch. I had to let the business make the decision, and you made the decision rightfully to hire the agency I worked at. And then I think I just called you and was like, mate, confession time, because you were due to come in the week after for like the kick-off meeting with the new agency. And I'll be honest, the agency was like, oh, well, when they come in, we'll just tell them. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I think I'll give you a call beforehand and just kind of...
Yeah, I think so, because it's one of those situations where anybody that's been in-house and has got agencies coming into pitch, you know, it's usually quite a long day. You know, you get loads of people in, you stagger them in, and you can tell pretty quickly. Yeah, I never understand why agency pitches are more than 10 minutes. Because from my point of view, within 5 or 10 minutes, I'm kind of thinking either these are the people I want to work with, or they know what they're doing, or they don't, or they kind of understand us, or they don't. So I kind of, over a day, you're kind of looking out for that. Who are the people that really get it? And as soon as Lee's agency came in, it was obvious that he knew what he was doing and he kind of understood it. And we just had that kind of, had that personal connection, which I think you get with people or you just don't. And it was very... I think it was our Instagram account. So it had taken me a while to get to the stage of saying we need Instagram, you know? And like a lot of businesses, you can't get budget for staff, but you can get budget to bring in an agency to do it for you, because the business thinks that, oh, well, you know, we can kind of turn that down or we can get rid of people. So it was kind of like a big moment. And, you know, I thought, right, Lee, brilliant. He's the person I want running this. Let's go with them. Literally an hour after sending the email, you've won it, get an embarrassed phone call going, yeah, I'm kind of not going to be here. I was like, right, we're going to have to start it all again. In the end, the agency were really good.
Yeah, they were there, yeah. My team carried on.
But yeah, I've kind of forgiven him now.
Just
kind
about.
of, yeah.
But I think that was it. I think that's the connection we had in that. Because again, I'll be honest, I pitch a lot, and sometimes you don't get that connection from the other side of the table. Agencies don't get that relationship with right either. So we got it, and I think after that, I then moved on, and we stayed in touch, and we were carrying on talking. Just it's great in social media or digital more broadly to find someone who kind of has a similar view, because essentially we're an industry of views. So it's nice for us to find someone who shares that. So I think we just started as just like mates essentially, and again for talking about industry, meeting up at events in London randomly because we'd all paid to go down there. And you already had Social MCR, which was kind of our first version of SocialNorth planned for.
So again, if I'm getting ahead of myself, stop me. But yeah, so Social MCR was like the first event. That was the very, very first beginnings of SocialNorth, which was very briefly, it was, got to that point, sick of there not being anything, but let's start something. So I had a really good relationship with Hootsuite back then, and I kind of said to them, look, if I book somewhere, do everything, will you pay for it? Yeah,
Oh, amazing.
Me being very kind of commercially naive, sent them the bill to pay for it. I didn't think, I can make some money. Didn't even enter my mind. Lee was a speaker at the first event.
That was me making up for ditching.
Yeah, that was me telling him, you're coming to do this and you're not getting paid. So Lee was a speaker at the first event, and after that, it was just kind of that was brilliant. Kind of, the two of us, let's do things together.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations there. I think leading up to it, I'd agreed to speak, because I'd done quite a lot of public speaking around it for a long time, and totally game, because again, I very rarely got invited to speak in the North as well, so I was excited for the same mission that we're now selling to other people. And I think my talk was on it was social media and experiential, and how most agencies and most brands do it wrong in terms of how you connect real life and online life together. But I think in the run-up to it, I think I just kept asking questions, and I helped with a lot of things in terms of consultancy around content, which is kind of one of my specialties and stuff like that. And it just became more and more. And I think by the time we got to the event, afterwards, the classic, every post-social North, I think we have a bit of a debrief, and it ends up a therapy session sometimes. But that was very much a post-session of like, this was ace. Like we had, the room was standing room only at the back.
Yeah, that first event was, again, it's stupid to say it now. It sounds crazy that you do it, but it was 2 weeks' notice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's smart.
I literally booked a really posh venue in Manchester, so King Street Townhouse, more like a wedding venue. I was like, yeah, we can make it work. Didn't promote it. I just DM'd loads of people on LinkedIn, made it this like invite-only exclusive thing. Loads of people were saying, I've heard about your event. Can I come? I'm thinking, if we get 50 or 60, the capacity is about 80 or 100. I think we had 150 people turn up.
Wow.
There's literally people stood at the back, people stood on the terrace outside. If you're stood as the speaker, there was like heads round pillars and all sorts of stuff. So it kind of showed, okay, so no planning, 2 weeks notice.
Yeah. Literally
just using like my network, this could become something. Let's do it again. We're kind of fortunate because I had that relationship with Hootsuite. There's not many people you could probably turn around to and say, can you just pay for this?
Yeah.
It'd be a few grand. And they go, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that first event showed there's something there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really obvious from what both of you are saying that you're both so passionate, not only about social media kind of and people from the North and kind of talent in the North and celebrating that and stuff, but you're both really passionate about what you do in terms of social media, in terms of content and that sort of stuff. You've both got, really varied and amazing kind of careers. How did you both get into social? When was it that you realised that social media, digital content, that side of thing was for you? Was there a moment when you were like, when you were younger, say, or whenever, that you thought, this is what I want to do and this is the role I want to do? Or has it been one of those typical kind of finding your way and falling into things and just kind of finding what you love along the way?
I'll let Lee go first on that, but something you said there that's really important was when we were younger, is it something we thought of? No, because when we were younger, literally didn't exist.
Yeah, fair.
When we were younger, barely had phones.
Yeah.
Dial-up internet.
I mean, fair enough.
So
it
was one of those things. I'll let you go first, but I will do.
But I'm going to say I'm kind of glad that Facebook was invented a year after I graduated from uni, which I'm kind of grateful of. There's no track record of my uni life online, which is
we were born at the perfect
grateful.
age for digital and social. You know, from the age of like 12 to kind of 18, it wasn't a thing. So our younger days aren't documented.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Lucky for us and you.
But then it kind of came in just as we were starting to kind of think about life outside, having fun and work and all these sorts of things. So it's just at that kind of cusp, that turning point. So not quite digital, like native. We didn't grow up with it. But from a professional point of view, it's kind of always, we've kind of been there from the start.
Yeah, and I think that's where, to the point of like, did you realise you're it? No, I absolutely fell into this. So I'll save you the full story, but basically, when I left university, I only wanted to do one thing, which was be a music journalist. That's what I was. Starting my career, I was a music journalist, specialising in heavy rock and metal.
Oh, wow.
Especially. And that's what I did. I came out of university and that's what I did. And again, this sentence ages me massively, but MySpace was the thing then, in terms of not only from a community perspective, but also that's where I discovered new music. It's where I spoke to bands, I spoke to managers and PRs and reps and everything in between. And I think because of it, career-wise, I learned how to use that to build my own community, to use basic HTML, to literally do content, to speak to people, to the point that I set up a music journalism's got no money in it, by the way, just in case. That's another reason, like, it was my chosen career.
In case anyone wants to go into it.
Yeah, it's a great career. But no, you get to go on tour, you get to meet bands, you get to do all the cool stuff, but you don't get paid, which is a bit of a problem.
Great.
So I used to do stuff on the side in terms of I wrote the bios for MySpace pages for bands. I did all that kind of stuff. I did press packs. I had little PR things on the side that I used to do on MySpace. And in order to do that, I was trying to sell my journalism degree, basically a reason for me to be able to work. But what I realized what I was doing was I was building MySpace communities, I was building YouTube channels, and people were asking me for that. So essentially that's what I started doing. I started creating social content, and then I was a copywriter. I had to fund the music journalism. I had a full-time job at the Press Association as a listings editor, specialising in music still. And I basically became the only person in the room who, when Facebook launched, I didn't just on it, I actually understood how it worked. Same with Twitter, same with YouTube, same with whatever came next. And it's actually quite funny now looking back how little people took it that seriously. I was the one person in the room who knew social. I was the one person in the room who took it seriously enough to say, you should probably do this. And I was often laughed out of a room when I talked about the professional or the serious side of social. And it got to the point where it just grew. And I think that's where, like I said, I never really planned it because it just kind of fell into it just through pure osmosis. But so as a kid, I was the lad who was on forums when early days internet. I was spending 90 minutes downloading a track on Napster back in the day. Like literally, I've been internet or tech obsessed from a young age. It was just a very different type of tech. And then, I always say that I feel just ridiculously lucky that I got in when it wasn't a serious endeavour, and it allowed me to play, it allowed me to discover, it allowed me to do all this great stuff. And then when it became more of a professional thing, I'd already been doing it for like five years probably at that point. And most of my first jobs in the industry were hybrid roles. I was a copywriter who did Twitter. I was I was the writer who did Facebook. I think it must have been 5-6 years into my career before I had my first job as like social media manager.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah, similarities, I think, because of the age. But I mean, I spent way too long studying, did multiple degrees, master's degrees. The plan was to become an academic, write books. That was always the plan. And then the family kind of said, right, get a job. Come on. A PhD, what's that going to do for you?
Yeah.
Go and earn some money. I was like, right, okay. So my first career was working in politics. I was like a parliamentary researcher, then a press officer, and that was kind of that's where I was going.
Oh, interesting.
But it a bit like Lee said, Twitter especially was starting to be used by politicians. And there was that understanding of, a politician can hold a constituency event and 20 people will come, or we can now reach thousands of people. And back then you could do, there was no real algorithms, there was no restriction. You had 5,000 people on a Facebook page, every post would go to 5,000 people. So I kind of became the go-to person, not just for the MP I was working for, but people he knew, because I was the one who kind of knew about these things. And once I left politics, I moved into kind of comms, PR, public affairs roles. But whether I was a comms manager or a media relations manager, I was always the social media person on the side. So for probably, at least 5 years, I did 2 jobs everywhere I worked. And the more kind of senior I got, the more senior I got with the social media. Because kind of back then, and I'm only talking maybe 15 years, even 10 years ago, social media manager or head of social, or it wasn't a job title.
Yeah.
Especially, my background's more public sector. There was no way you were getting budget for a dedicated person for social media, because it was like,
but the
that's
uptake
crazy.
In public sector and that sort of stuff's always, generally from my experience, is slower anyway, isn't it? So it's interesting to hear both of your experiences of it. And I mean, Lee, you said, this will age me, but I was on MySpace and stuff. I was on MySpace, but very much like, I think I was probably about 14 and it was like my top 10 friends from school, and it wasn't in any way in a professional capacity, but that was kind of my first exposure to those platforms as well. But it's so interesting to hear of your experiences of how it was before social was this big thing that is just at the forefront of everybody's day to day, and we can't see it any differently. And that you were, because you both had that knowledge and that experience in it, that it kind of became something that you were the go-to person for, and your careers kind of forged from there. It's such an interesting path.
Yeah, and I mean, the kind of social media as a side of the desk role had been something for years, across loads of industries. Public sector, it was probably more prominent because of kind of things move a bit slower and budgets are harder to get. But it was really when I was in a kind of press office manager, media relations role. The classic way of sending out a press release to a database, and you kind of hope for the best, maybe have a coffee every now and again with a journalist. I was speaking to 20, 30 journalists via Twitter DMs. I was getting more media coverage than the business had had before, and I wasn't sending out press releases. I was doing it through private conversations on Twitter. And it was those kind of moments when it was like, A, this is where things are going. B, I'm pretty good at it. So I was like, right, as soon as the social media role started appearing, I thought, go and do that. Go and do it.
Yeah.
It was so complimentary to things. Like when I talk about my journalism, I was obsessed with print, and I still am to this day. Literally before this podcast, I was book shopping in Liverpool because I still like the tangible feeling of print. And I'm obsessed with content. And I think it was that switch that we had in terms of understanding that what I loved could be translated to online. And if, even in the early days, that's my entire career, especially early days career, has been predicated on that idea of learning. Like again, I loved writing, so then I had to learn to write in the context of a blog instead of a physical letter or a book. In order to understand that, someone would then tell me about SEO. So okay, cool. So now I'm learning about Google and how that works. Then you're obviously putting that stuff online. I'm like, okay, I need to think about early days WordPress. I need to think about UX. I need to think about, and so that's my entire career has been predicated on this idea of rolling my own interests in content, in communication, in talking to people, was just funneled through this one channel. And it's kind of, it's pure luck, like absolute pure luck that it actually became what it did. Because for every social media channel that came huge, there was obviously dead channels that went the opposite way. So I think, again, I always refer to it as incalculably lucky, and it is because, like you said, we started at the right time when it was not serious. We took it seriously enough to stay with it.
Yeah.
And then by the time it became serious, I always feel a little bit weird saying like I was there at the beginning. Because it's,
no, but it's true.
the most uncool thing to say.
And throughout this evolution and throughout your careers growing, as social and kind of digital has developed, have there been any standout campaigns or things that you've been involved in that have been highlights? Obviously, I know there will be loads of them, and it's probably a lot of pressure to put you on the spot to pick one, but are there any that you can think of that you know really stand out for you as something that you were a part of?
Yeah, for me, I think...
Full stop.
Yeah.
Just yes.
Yes,
okay, no context. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
I said yes, then I'm like 10 came into my head at the same time. I feel like I've worked in agencies for the last 15 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with big brands, local brands, global brands, and really cool stuff. And but I think most recently, I'm going to reference a piece of work I'm doing now, which I'm at Manifest now, which is work we've done with Tommy Tippy, the parents and baby brand. because the reason why I want to highlight it is because it was my first client when I went to Manifest, which was a big moment for me in terms of excited to be at the agency and also working with them. I'm a parent, so again, a brand that I grew up with in terms of I remember it being around when I was a kid versus, and now I've got children, it's the same thing again. And then the campaign we've been doing it's now in year 3. And I love the fact that it wasn't a campaign like, what did you do for 2 weeks? What did you do for a month? It was a rolling strategy for a brand level that needed to be built out and would consistently grow and has. And I said, we're in year 3 now. And the reason why I love it so much is because actually the kernel of what it started with was the insight that most parent brands look at the baby but don't look at mum. They look after the baby, they don't look after the mum, which obviously is such an important time in life in terms of what, once you have a baby, I say this as a man, so I'm conscious of what I'm saying, but it's, keep going, keep digging that hole. Go on. But it's such an important role that so much attention is given to baby and not the parent and not the mum in that situation. So to take a stance as a campaign where we did that, and we spoke to over 1,000 mums, like literally one-on-one, talked to them about what is of they experienced, and then we, if I want a pun, gave birth to a campaign that was basically off the back of what those mums said, how they felt, what they were going through, what they expected and what they didn't expect, and those truths that exist in there. And the first year was essentially a campaign that was just a celebration of feeding from a mum's perspective and the kind of the joy of doing that, but underpinned with some real strong truths. And that included a really strong social narrative in terms of like hero content, but then like Instagram series where we talked to mums one-on-one about stuff. And then since then we've gone on and on again, and we've now talked about, we do a lot of stuff around parental truths, highlighting the stigma that is attached to stuff like breastfeeding in public and all that kind of stuff. And it's just an amazing campaign. And the final reason why I love it is because not only did it completely change the perspective of Tommy Tippy, it's also started to change the narrative of how people speak about parenting, which from a brand campaign is incredible. When we first launched our first video, it was banned by most of the social channels because it includes women breastfeeding their baby, which is ridiculous, to put it mildly, because essentially it's seen as sexualized content. We knew that were those rules. We did it anyway, and it actually opened up a conversation where Facebook started to have a conversation with Tommy Tippy direct. LinkedIn changed the rules around the video for placement, so they reinstated it. So again, it's significant change we were delivering with the campaign.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
I honestly have no idea where to start with that question, because like Lee said, he's kind of been in agency most of his life. I've done so many different things. So like a standout moment or project or campaign, for me, it's not necessarily the ones that kind of have achieved a brief or have, got the coverage. There's so many things. So, one, I worked at a place called Myesco College, which is a very specialist college for, I suppose, kind of different types of education. So they've got a motorsport academy, they've got sports academies that are aligned to, Nike, Formula One teams, all these amazing things. But no one really knew about them. They're like the best in the industry. And the stories in there are like a PR person's dream. There's so many we put the spotlight on these young kids that have gone from, traditionally not great at education to now being through Myesco College and they're working on Lewis Hamilton's car, or they're a groundskeeper at Real Madrid or Wimbledon Tennis Club. And we were able to kind of put a spotlight on that very much and kind of tell those stories. So it's those things. But I mean, there's so many different campaigns. I think the way I look at it, there's what I've kind of ended up doing without it being purposeful is get brought into an organisation when social is either at the beginning or they've kind of got to a stage where they've maybe plateaued. And my job has been to take them to that next level or to get social started.
Yeah.
And that can be, who do you recruit? What's the strategy? What tools do you bring in? Just how do you use social more effectively? And because a lot of it's been in the public sector, fundamentally what that's allowed the organisation to do is communicate better with people. It's transformed how an entire organisation speaks to the people that they serve. So I think that sort of work, which is about helping organisations kind of realise the potential of social media, is probably the thing when I look back I'm most proud of. Now, I'm sure there's individual bits in there that I would pull out. I think one thing I always think about is I was involved in the the response to the Manchester Arena attack.
Yeah, wow.
So that was, really difficult. I mean, fundamentally, our role was quite small. We weren't the police, but we were responsible for kind of transport comms. And the reality is, what happened. It was horrendous, and it was a tough thing to work through. But people still needed to get around. They needed to be reassured, made to feel safe. Me, my team, other people at the organisation worked, crazy hours, but just to kind of reassure people that things are still moving, you can still get around, and to see the kind of Manchester community come together, that's kind of something I'll never forget working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, crazy. What role do you think then with SocialNorth, and I think both of you have obviously worked on a number of different, social campaigns, content campaigns. What role do you think social media has played with SocialNorth then? Because I know going back to earlier when you were talking about your first event, and it was very, inclusive, invite only. Now, obviously, it's not that anymore. It's the opposite, yeah. And obviously, having done all of the events you did in 2022, what role does social play? And do you think that your expertise from previous campaigns, from your whole career, plays a part in that? And the kind of distribution of those events and actually getting people there?
Yeah, I mean, the knowledge on, growing something from, because when SocialNorth started, just to go back slightly, we did the last social MCR event in March 2020, the week before the first lockdown. The plan was to use that event to launch this new concept and do it across the north. Obviously, I had to wait 2 years, and then we started. But again, when we started, it was very much no idea if people will buy into this. Do people even want to go to events? But it quickly went from put the focus on the event, people supported what we were trying to do. So we thought, put on a cool event, great people, nice food and drink, posh venue. That's what is going to make this a success. Now we get people saying, whatever you do in the future, we're going to sign up to.
Yeah.
Kind of don't care who the speakers are. We just see your name and we're going to do something.
Yeah.
Because people buy into what we're trying to do. It's that mission, it's that purpose. There's a lot of kind of, I'll use the word nonsense around purpose-led, value-driven businesses. It's become a bit of a buzzword. But when you look at SocialNorth, that's what's become important. So our kind of combined experience on how do we use content, how do we use social strategically, it's more, let's realise why people are engaging with us and let's use social to kind of push that.
Yeah. Let's
make people part of it. Let's bring people in. It's not about us going information about event, and that's all we talk about. Actually, we're kind of getting to a stage now where we're going to talk less about the events and we want to talk more about why we're doing what we're doing, because that's what people talk to us about.
Yeah.
I think my experience is if you can get an audience to connect with something, whether that's a commercial, you're trying to sell a product, you're trying to, public sector, if people are telling you something, you need to use that and make it part of your story. Don't try and force your narrative on people. I think if there's one thing I've learned, it's you've kind of got to be flexible and adapt and listen to people and then thread that through your approach.
Yeah, and I think that feedback loop has been really important for us. I think we've, for our careers, for clients and stuff, we've both built communities and we've built those kind of feedback loops before. But when coming at it from a position where you've been in the industry for a long time, there is a worry that you can say, like, I know what I'm doing here. It's the classic thing about everything. Like, I've been doing social media for a long time, so maybe I could have you can become an influencer because I'm inside the tent for so long. So when we came to the events, which I'll be honest, my background isn't in experiential or events. I know how to activate on events, but not running them and building them myself. But we had a view on what we wanted to build, and we built, I think the first few versions of it were probably in our own image or what we saw as something we wanted to do in it. And then in time, through feedback, whether that's on the night, our community have been amazing. Like, the second an event finishes, we actively go around the room, right, and speak to people, asking them what they thought of the night, who was their favourite speaker, what did they really like, because we want to tease that information out while it's still fresh in the brain. But then we get into social feeds like the night of and the morning after, and they're constantly sharing their favorite moments and clips and all this kind of stuff. And we've essentially created that feedback loop that allows us to, that every event is an iteration of what became before. Even like we always wanted to go across the north, but the fact that we heard stories of people traveling to Manchester from Leeds or from Newcastle to come down to see us, or from Liverpool, I know you guys have come across a few times, that in itself told us there's an impassioned community in these key cities. And we've had people, we had a student, I think he was, who started a petition in Sheffield for us to go there. And she came to events in Newcastle and in Leeds and stuff. So I think that, so it's little things like that where you're like, okay, that guides us really strongly with where we go next. It informs who we speak to, where we run events. I think that's been really important. And I think that it's another reason why this year, whilst we are still planning a lot of stuff we're doing, we're kind of planning in public a lot more than we've probably done in the past. Because I think it's so important for us to, I mean, we've probably got how many WhatsApp groups between us for different dimensions of, so we've got SocialNorth content group, and then we've got the kind of just general planning group, and then the news group, and that's just me and you just talking to each other.
In different channels.
Yeah, exactly. Very active conversation.
Keep it organised, but I mean,
but we have to do that. Right?
I love the organisation actually.
Yeah.
But I mean,
hats off.
on your question on kind of what have our backgrounds taught us, it's been really difficult, really difficult. I kind of wish I could like hire myself to look at SocialNorth objectively, work out what our content strategy needs to be, write the plan, and then give it to myself.
Interesting.
Yeah,
because one of the first times in my kind of life and career, and I think it's because it like means a lot. Because it's taken me until this age to go, this is what I want to do. Like, consultancy is wonderful and working with loads of different clients is great, you know, but SocialNorth has been different. And I think it's made me question myself more than I have. I'm like, I know this approach will work, but is it right? Should we say it like this? Whereas I would never have that hesitation with a client. That's really tricky. And again, that's why SocialNorth has taught me so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get that from kind of what you do.
I mean, I imagine that's definitely something that you can really relate to, isn't it, Liv? But I think it's so interesting to hear that. And I think I just think that's such an interesting nugget of information that you'd like to have yourself be able to be objectively external and kind of give you what you should be doing with it. But it must be so hard, right? When you're so passionate about it and it's like, you know that you could do all of these things for other businesses and other brands in a consultancy capacity, like you say, but it's different, isn't it? When there's that emotional attachment. So talking about SocialNorth then, again, not sure quite how straightforward this question is going to be to answer for you both, but so many of our listeners I know will be really, really interested in SocialNorth. What do you guys at the moment see the future of SocialNorth looking like? How can people get involved? You know, going away from listening to this podcast, what can people do to get involved with what you guys are up to?
I mean,
do you want me to?
Well, there's so much that we've got in terms of the future plans. Yeah. This is another, again, the challenge of what we've been building in the open. And like I said, we can share some specifics, I suppose, as well about what we're talking about it. But like, what SocialNorth could be
Will be.
Yeah. Positive.
Good shout.
Yeah.
Like that. That's a good build.
Yeah.
Because it's essentially it's an infinite book, right? What it will be.
Yeah, and it's kind of, you know, it's always in these things. Your greatest strength is often your greatest weakness with things. So one thing, again, I get paid to do and have done for a number of years is the long-term strategic thinking. What's the vision? How can we go from where we are to what we could become? So on a roadmap, you know, SocialNorth is starting with events. We want to do lots of big events. We want to introduce kind of smaller, more intimate events by sector, which gives our existing community something more specific to them. That's feedback we've had. But the kind of vision for SocialNorth is events are very much the start.
Yeah.
You know, we've got ambitions we want SocialNorth to become a real kind of voice for the industry, because one thing about social media compared to PR or comms, marketing, there isn't a chartered institute. There isn't a PRCA, CIM, all these organisations. Social media kind of exists without that central authority. Why not make SocialNorth something that can drive an industry like that? You know, I've got loads of thoughts and Lee has big ambitions, create a SocialNorth fund to help people start businesses, loads of different things. Now, the hard bit is what do we do next week to make that happen?
Yeah.
That's why we've got 15 WhatsApp groups.
That's why we've got so many WhatsApp groups. So the kind of focus for what comes next is to kind of go, okay, that's where we're going. I can see it. I know how we're going to get there. Let's get the next event sorted out.
Yeah.
That new idea for a new event series, let's just do that and nothing else. Mm-hmm. Because it's hard enough if SocialNorth was the only thing that we did. SocialNorth kind of started as that classic passion project side hustle. Yeah. Let's see what we can do. And then over the course of a few months, it grows into something fairly big and, could be quite a big business. I've got 2 other businesses to run. I've got 3 or 4 other roles in other businesses that pay the bills. Last year, that kind of had to be put to one side and we focused on SocialNorth. But I think in terms of how people can kind of find out about us, I think that the first answer is sign up to our kind of newsletter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're not, by our own admission, we're not as regular with the comms as we'd like to be, but we're sorting that out, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's again, building this to your point around wanting to hire yourself, I think that's the perfect thing. It's like, we are building this ship as we sail it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a chosen path for us in many ways because we knew, we've spent so much time thinking about what we wanted to do that, we're both strategists, right? So we probably could think about this for years if we really wanted to. But the ability we wanted to put something on and we want to build this as we go, and that's what we're doing. And so I think there is a website, there is a newsletter, we've got social channels. Me and Justin are both pretty prolific on all of the social channels as well. The curse of being in the industry and the pleasure at the same time. So I think we never tire of hearing people talk about SocialNorth because it's, for us, that's just fuel to show that it's needed. Like even we went to an awards this is a humble brag, but we were nominated at the Prolific North Awards for Outstanding Contributor to the North. We got highly commended.
We voted for you.
We did.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Quite a few people did apparently. Which was a really proud moment, again, coming back to the whole ethos for doing it. But I think the point, rather than just humbly bragging about it, we went to that awards 2 weeks ago now, in Manchester, and the sheer amount of people who stopped us to ask where the next event is, to ask us, you should speak to so-and-so, he's over there, you should speak to it. And it's a genuine, and that's talking about the building in public thing, which we've been really passionate about now, is we want, the thing we're building is something that we're the architects of it, but the caveat in that is everyone in the North can equally help us build this, what we're doing it. I said we're shaping the vision to what the North needs, not just what me and Justin need. We've both spoken at enough conferences that if we just wanted to speak on stage, we probably could do that without having to go through the headaches where we're building our own event series. But that's essentially what we want to build. We want to build something that represents the North. And as the North is changing, which we've obviously seen over the last, I'd say it's 5-10 years, and from a marketing perspective, we will change with it. So right now our roadmap is busy, but clear in terms of how everything bridges together as well, which is really important. We don't want to be the person who goes, oh, actually, this is really cool now, so let's launch X. We've never been about that. So I think we've got a really interconnected roadmap of plans.
Yeah.
And we have to be really honest with ourselves in terms of what is needed now versus what is needed next month, potentially next year and onwards. Because as hopefully it's demonstrated, our passion for this isn't designed to be it'd be cool if we did a few events. It'd be really cool if we changed the entire game in the North. Yeah,
and I kind of hinted at before, it's gone from, did a few events in Manchester, let's grow it, put SocialNorth on. Can we do it? Are people going to turn up? Do people care? Like, are they happy going to London and paying money, or do they want something on the doorstep? And last year told us the demand is way bigger than we could handle. Which is a lovely problem to have.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, isn't it, right?
Every event we go to, or even just walking around like Manchester city centre or wherever, people stop and say, oh, when's the next one? Are you going to do it every month? So in Liverpool, had people coming up to us saying, and I would ask, would you come back? How often should we do it? Oh, if you do it monthly, I'll come. I'm like, right, okay. So that's one massive event every month in 6 cities.
Yeah.
Right, okay, that's quite an ambition. But I think your question around what can people do. SocialNorth is not anti-London. It's kind of pro-North.
Yeah.
That's the way I think about it. And I think what people can do individually is kind of celebrate the North a bit more.
Yeah.
You're a kind of shining example of an amazing business, built this incredible community, doing amazing things, and the future for you hopefully is really bright. There's loads of other businesses out there that are growing. Just talk it up more.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a business owner or you're an agency or somebody who's doing really good work, put them forward for stuff.
Yeah.
There's almost like a collective responsibility.
Yeah.
Even if it's uncomfortable, go and speak at that big conference.
Yeah.
Go and show the kind of industry outside London that there are these amazing brands, businesses, people that are doing incredible stuff. And kind of look past the kind of competition. I always kind of appeal to people that we're going to have to build the reputation of the North up kind of ourselves. So that's my kind of appeal to people, is just talk it up a bit more, get involved in stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's what you found, that there is other events happening now, especially I've seen events in Liverpool and Newcastle where we've been, and we've attended quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I think there's occasions where you've had conversations, especially with people who are creating events, and they're almost surprised that we're supporting them. No, I don't know. This makes it sound like we're surprised we turn up, but we're not the Kardashians. But but the ultimate, that whole thing of like, if there's an event on that's actively supporting, it's got the same mission as us to create that kind of the true Northern powerhouse, not just the government version of it, is for us. Is very much around like, we want to be there and celebrate with them. Yeah. We want to promote that, and we'll do the same. We'll use our community to highlight things. And those same community members have obviously come to our events, and I think that's really important for us to be able to celebrate that together. And one of the other things I was going to say is that actually people who have spoken to us have asked us about creating SocialNorth in their city, but them running it, which is the first time someone suggested that to us, kind of blew my mind, if I'm honest, because it was like, oh, you want to do this? And
you want to hold my baby?
Yeah. So I think that, again, that's it's a really interesting conversations to have with people. Like, I want to speak, I want to attend all of them. People follow us around different things. I want to host my own. I want to be involved. Like you guys, how do we support it? You've been great at supporting that. So like, I've been lovingly surprised by the response.
Yeah,
and I think that's
one of the funniest things still is we get people getting in touch saying, "Oh, I've seen your event. It looks amazing. I've been on your kind of ticket registration. It says it's free."
Yeah, that's you.
It's like, well, can I bring as many people as you want?
Yeah.
And it took a while for that kind of, what's the catch?
Yeah.
Big fancy venue, amazing speakers, glass of champagne, no cost. And it's taken a while for people to go, oh, you are actually doing this because you kind of believe in the mission behind it. And I think that says a lot about the kind of event space that people are used to being pitched at, used to it being a kind of lead generation exercise. But as soon as we've seen that change, it's been so positive, and then we have seen other people kind of start doing things, and that's what it's about. It's about encouraging the industry together in the North to do stuff and supporting each other, which is kind of crucial.
Yeah. And I think it's about making events more affordable as well. I know, we were chatting about it earlier,
Yeah.
but that's something that I know we kind of are all passionate about. I think it's so hard to, pay out hundreds of pounds for, a one-day conference or even, a week long or anything like that. And I think for our community, from a girls in marketing perspective, we generally have people who are, kind of junior, mid-level, getting started in their career. And that's not really something that they can, one, afford, and two, really have the confidence to pitch when it comes to training or anything like that. And I think having those accessible events in local places is so important because, not everyone's going to want to, go to London necessarily. And on the point that you were saying before in regards to events and kind of like going to these amazing venues, it showcases the venues as well, doesn't it? So it's a win-win for everyone, really, as much as it's a win for the attendees, it's a win for the venue, and I think so many from another kind of event. We organise events with Girls in Marketing as well. So many venues I speak to in the North are so willing to give you their event space, you know, especially kind of smaller, more intimate places. You know, you ask in London and you're looking at minimum spend or, you know, whatever, where a lot of places in the North are like, oh yeah, like I've got this space, like I'd love to host you, stuff like that. So I think there is that community element of the North, and it's nice to see that when that comes together.
And that's a really important point, because that's kind of the immediate future for SocialNorth. Is, you know, I spend a lot of my time just going out, talking to people, you know, no kind of agenda. Sometimes I think, oh, could be a partner, sponsor, but ultimately they're just interesting people. And lots of people say the same thing, which is, we absolutely love what you're doing. We back it. It's needed. It's not right for us as a business. Even if this business is huge and has got plenty of money, it's just not right for us to sponsor it. But we've got this amazing event space. You know, we'd love you to do something here, and we'd love to be able to support it. So we're kind of developing a number of sector-specific series, which will be, like you said, you know, a kind of friendly business partner who is helping us keep costs down, but be able to do something for the kind of people in the industry. You know, the reality is, for SocialNorth to grow, it needs to be commercially viable on its own. And whatever that looks like, and you'll know there's a million different options, we always want to have that free element where the barriers that we do want to remove from the industry aren't there. You know, I think where lots of kind of events, and I get it 100%, and I would never criticise anybody for this, where they offer a few bits for free and then it's just paywalled instantly. It's like, right, we kind of got your interest now, right, now pay up. And I think that's what some people were waiting for with SocialNorth. They'd been to 2 events and they were going, is this one free? It's like, yeah. But what you said is that, you know, there's always something people can do to support a Girls in Marketing, a SocialNorth, or whoever it is. It isn't always about a big chunk of money up front. You know, just spread the word. Whether you've got event space, whether you can tell your network, whether you can talk about it online. It's that power collectively over a huge industry that's going to make a big difference. You know, no one organisation is going to do it.
And to your point about access, I think, just to talk on that for a second, I think for me personally, I think it's part of our mission, but access is a huge point to this. Like, ignoring the fact I'm ancient and social media didn't exist when I was a kid, but I mean, even as a child, like I come from a very working class background, and in a smaller town. I'm from Bradford, it's like a small town off of like kind of the big city in Leeds, and very much looking at that as like, if it wasn't for a handful of teachers, I would not have known that journalism was even an option for me. And now, as a grown up and in the industry, I do stuff like mentoring with the Ideas Foundation. And obviously we partnered with the Juice Academy for the content team for the events in Manchester, across all our events. And being able to speak to people who are actively, so for Ideas Foundation, I do a lot of work with like college kids, and they're even, you would think now their grasp of social is obviously so all-encompassing with modern culture. It is, but they still don't recognise it or realise it's actually a career opportunity. Or if they do, they potentially look at it from the light of an influencer, which, again, we could do an entire podcast about that. But like, being able to have those conversations and go, actually, you know what? You need to speak to this person, you need to do this, or you need to come to this event. For a long time, I wouldn't have been able to say anything about that. I wouldn't have been able to do that. So the ability for us to be running an event series that is free, that even at a future, if we do look at paid options, there is still going to be elements of access is going to be so important to what we do. Because I don't want at any point someone saying to me, like, I would love to come to your event, but I can't afford it. Everyone's already done that. And I think that's, to your point, live around something on your doorstep as well. I may be generalising here, but the idea of having to travel to London and then go to an event and there's only 1,000 people there, like, that's a terrifying prospect, not just for younger people, but for anyone who is not used to this industry. I had a conversation with, there's a woman in, I think it's Manchester, who was a photographer, and she'd never been to a networking event, but because it was in Manchester and she was a photographer, and she wasn't like a digital photographer, she was I think she must have been in her 50s, and she was just talking about, like, it was on my doorstep, you referenced content in the piece, one of my friends on LinkedIn talked about it, so I thought I'd come down. I don't know if she came to all our events or she came to that one, but that 10 minutes speaking to her was, for me, really impactful, because it was it's kind of easy for me to attract a social media exec or a head of social media in Manchester, whether that's through network, LinkedIn ad, whatever it might be. For us to connect to someone who has never been to an event before and wanted to connect and wanted to give it a go, that was so powerful. And we've definitely had people, probably more on the junior end, ask us like, I've never networked before, what should I do? Which again, that was something I never really expected. People like DMing us and saying if I was to come to your event, what do I do? And we, again, I think there was a young girl who we were essentially coached into like, if you come along, we can give you like an initial intro to one or two people so you feel comfortable with have an ally in the group. Then we have to kind of crack on and do the event. But like here is someone you should speak to. Yeah. And then afterwards, like, oh, I love that when I come down again. So I think that access for me is huge. It's like it's one of my primary drivers for doing this.
Amazing. Yeah, and that, you know, the small ideas that I don't know if you're like me, get carried away with, and you think, right, just leave that's down the line, and then before you know it, you're kind of working on it. Like the idea for a SocialNorth fund plugs into that.
Yeah, I think we can definitely relate to that on some level, can't we, Liv?
No, I think it's been such an interesting chat with you both today, and I'm super excited for the future of SocialNorth.
Yeah, can't wait.
As I've already said, I'm a massive advocate for like the North, and kind of, you know, for a long time, people didn't know. Well, I think a lot of people still don't know that Girls in Marketing is Liverpool based. It's something that we speak a lot more about now, but at the beginning it was very much like, oh, like they knew it was UK, assumed it was London, you know, everyone does. So I think that's definitely really important to me, but very excited for the future of SocialNorth. Thank you so much for coming up.
Thank you. As the only official 2-time speaker at SocialNorth. Yeah, it means a lot to get the invite. So thank you for today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Girls in Marketing podcast. We love hearing from you, so if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review to let us know your thoughts, and make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button to be the first to hear when our new episodes released. Don't forget, if you want to get involved with Girls in Marketing, check out our membership to join our incredible community of marketers. Think marketing resources, courses, webinars, and more. Find out more on our website or drop us a message on any of our social channels @Girls in Marketing.